Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. I hope you had a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have the new Yuletide event going on. So I wanted to do a little breakdown about this, as well as some of the experiences so far. It's well underway. I've already generated like 550 points, but I want to talk to you guys about this, about whether or not it's useful for you, or should you go for it, should be the answer. So with that being said, I'm going to break it down. We're going to take a look at each of the milestones and the things you're going to have to do along the way to get it. But I also wanted to talk about the He-Man event too today as well. With that has to do with the Path to Power. We're going to break down those two particular events. So with that being said, let's get into it. Okay. Milestone number 1. It seems to be pretty straightforward, that like it kind of scales over the course of like each of the milestones. It gets better, and it starts off a little weak, I won't lie, but for the early game players, this could be very useful. I mean, you need any means of getting your upgrades as soon as possible. Like rank 3 chickens could help you get closer towards that 6-star gradually. The multi-battles, not so much important, especially if you have resources like RSL Helper that you can use. Shout out to Farm Stuff. The XP booster is really good if you're trying to get a lot of value out of a big farm session. Silver's a great way to upgrade some gear. Like, it's all small and very semi-useful stuff. Like, you know, rare skill tunes early could be very useful. It does fall off later on, so the value for mid to onward game players, they're probably not going to see this as valuable, but early game is going to be pretty good. Now for milestone 2, I mean, this is where it starts to crank up a little bit more. Soul stones start becoming a lot more value. Even getting like an early access to like lesser oils is not bad. Some brews are pretty good. Core hammers, which will be useful for you down the road, are going to be really good. Energy, which is by far one of the most important assets in this game. Greater oils, so you start getting a little bit more value even on top of the oils you've done. Some player points, which, give or take how you feel about those, could be good or bad. And then, of course, void shards. Void shards are really, really good. A lot of the strongest champions in the game are currently void, as well as being mythical too. So, like, bringing it forward to mythical side, we have, like, you know, haste glyphs on milestone 3. You got extracts for basically your accessories, so the same thing goes. The middle ones are harder to acquire, so this is actually a lot more valuable for some reason. It's just drop rates are weird. And then we start getting to the point where like you start seeing some actual valuable stuff. So epic books for the more early to mid game players, super valuable. Late game players, there may be some one-offs here and there that you want to do, but I feel like epic skill tunes at this point should be pretty much something you're already kind of comfortable with. In game, they're a dime a dozen. We have plenty of them. Whereas like immortal soul coins, which are useful for essence or for creating more soul stones to pull, those mediums, which I value very highly. Those are pretty good consistency wise for me. And then of course the legendary ore, mid to late could really see a lot of value out of this, because you're still probably rocking some 5-star gear. In game, very small doses. There might be like some sets that are brand new that you may want to try to find a new piece in. You're just going to use a placeholder until you get that 6-star upgrade. But you know, and always having chaos ore is never a bad thing. And then of course primal shards. Everybody benefits from primal shards, and particularly end-game players that are looking to improve compositions and have the cream of the crop. So definitely valuable there. Milestone 4 and Milestone 5 is where it kind of kicks up a notch when you really start seeing what I would say is late game to end game valued assets. Gems, always good for converting into ancient shards, or more and particularly energy, which is what I do. Haste glyphs are very sparse. You really only get them in very small dosages outside of basically either buying them with Forge Pass stuff or just farming in Faction Wars, which takes a day at a time whenever you're trying to farm it, and it's RNG, right? So haste glyphs, very valuable. Even 5-star, even 6-star, you know? Chaos Dust, also very valuable because we're constantly re-rolling gear to improve our builds. Brews, not so much, because it's very easy for us to farm experience as long as you got the energy. Early to late game champions, or at least mid game, y'all probably have some value there too as well. I mean, it's useful for everybody, let's be real. But the Immortal Soul Essences is where I would say mid to late and onwards really have to like, okay, this is worthwhile, because you may get that one blessing that is good for your character, even if it's like that rare, that kale that you're starting off with. That 10 essence is enough to buy that first tier. Or, you know, that 10 essence can be useful for the halfway point of a Lego you're looking forward to. You know, there's a lot of value there in terms of improving your characters if you have the essence to do so. And I generally keep a rule of thumb that I always try to hold around like 200 to 300 plus, so that whenever a big blessing comes up that I may want to buy, I can get it, you know? So having that resource available for you to grab is always going to be really good. Gear removals, with all the current stuff that we're doing, there's so many things where we're using champions in different styles and different approaches, where having that gear removal is not too bad. It's nice. It's a nice little quality of life. Saves you some silver, so we like those. And then, of course, more energy. Everybody benefits from it. And then 6-star Chaos Ores. This is where it gets a little yummy. 6-star Chaos Ore, really good for every level of accounts, but more importantly for those that are getting really good access to really good pieces that are useful in certain sets. Chaos Orb to flip it to get a better opportunity is always going to be really useful. So in-game players are going to love that. Maybe even late game players, you know, depending on how much you farmed or what you got on your account at this point. Mortal Soul Stones, like I said before, very valuable. And of course, Sacred. Sacreds, they don't become as valuable as you go up because you start becoming more specific about what you want instead of just getting anything. Whereas like Sacreds are really good for early to mid to late game accounts because almost anything is good. And then, you know, duplicates of certain things can be really good. And then you start becoming more picky as you go more closer towards end game. But nevertheless, Sacreds are pretty good for getting Legos if you have good RNG. And then, of course, our last one, the big milestone itself, the reason why you're farming for this event, if you are farming it, is 1, 6-star Hazecliff. Very big. If you like Vanity, the avatar frame, you know, if you want to look a little fancy with the little Christmas theme on your profile picture, then you're more than welcome to. Superior is not that hard to acquire once you start getting towards like end game, late game. You kind of have the efficiency there to be able to farm that, and drop rate wise, the lessers and the greaters or the superiors are really easy to get, whereas like the middle one seems to be a little bit more sparse, just from my experiences at least. And then of course, 6-star legendary Chaos Orb, mint, we love it. Eternal Soul Coins, this is for Eternal Essences or for the big superior Soul Stone. Big deal for end game, big deal for late game in particular. And then of course, if you can get lucky, you know, middle or early, that's even more of a trajectory of pushing your account to the next phase of your experience. XP barrels, not too big of a deal. And of course, rank 5. Chickens also very easy to acquire as you are becoming more perfected at farming. Legendary skill tunes and mythical tunes in particular, especially with the 2x promo that we just had, very valuable for people who were able to get a couple reds along the way. And then of course, Sir Nicholas himself. So, do we care about Sir Nicholas? I think the answer is it depends. If your account is one that is in its infancy, or maybe you have the resources but you just don't have the champions to be able to effectively farm stuff like Demon Lord, or maybe even some key areas of the game that could help you by sustaining a little bit, Sir Nicholas is going to be very valuable for you. So early game, mid game accounts, this is something I would not scoff at. Unkillable for your entire team for 2 turns allows your team to be able to maybe go into some speed tunes for Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, as well as being able to provide shields, which could be very valuable. The continuous heals, very valuable. And then of course being able to freeze, although this is not too much of a utilized asset. It can't be resisted, so you don't have to worry about building accuracy into them. But I will say that 50% chance is not all that. And more importantly, there are better options out there that are epics for that matter if you really want to free somebody. So with that being said, this champion is ideal for early game to mid game players if you're trying to get Unkillable unlocked for your clan boss teams. Maybe another opportunity to give you some kind of sustain in terms of like survivability for maybe you're close to beating that dragon stage or you know something, but you're just coming up a little bit short. This could be the thing that could get you over the hump, you know, especially with shielding and healing along with being unkillable for that term, even if you do take a big heavy fatal punch. So mid-game to late-game players, I think this is still valuable, either from like Pokédex experience, if you want to just acquire unique champions, at least 1 copy of each, then of course obviously there's going to be a good grab for you if you don't have them. But late-game to end-game, this is where we consider some options. So for in-game players or late-game players, you're looking to min-max as much stats as possible, and one way you'd be able to do that is through Faction Guardians. So even if you have 1 copy already of Sir Nicholas, this is a great opportunity for you to get that second to maybe establish a full Sacred Order Faction Guardian. That could be that increased speed that you need or that increased accuracy, which makes your builds more effective. Think maybe if you're doing mid to late game wise, you're thinking of doing the Aniri combo for Sand Devil, and she's just coming up a little short in terms of stats. Maybe that Faction Guardians, well, I guess maybe not so much for legendaries, but like, you know, it's an example of what you can do to improve your builds. TLDR, I don't want to go too far into the sauce of it, but you know, maybe that duo partner you're working with, like for example, maybe to put it into perspective, you have a Venus, right? And you're using her with a Neri, but you know, maybe she's lacking in a little bit of accuracy to hit that check for Sand Devil. There you go. Perfect example. There you go. We brought it home there. It's a great opportunity to get them. So I'm going to have them just in case. You never know too as well. For my in-game boys, if you guys are interested in, you know, Plarium this year has done a lot more of a active role in rebalancing champions and bringing some up to par. Some a little bit missed the mark. Some of them definitely hit the mark. And then, you know, so on and so forth. So who knows? Maybe Sir Nicholas down the road could be very valuable. So if you don't have one, have one. It's better to have and not need than need and not have, right? And he could be very valuable in that regard. So that could be something that would be useful for any player that is looking to expand their capabilities. And then not to mention, too, Sin City becomes a lot more valuable, a lot more important for players as you progress, particularly like late game to end game. This is one of the best places to get involved in, you know? And there are going to be some restricted maps where you can only use Void champions that are support-oriented, and that could be that Sir Nicholas that can get you into that fight, you know? So I would definitely recommend keeping that in the back of your head when you're progressing. If you're looking to establish the why, well, what areas would you see him being capable of in? And that's something that I mentioned, or could be a place for you. So with that being said, I would say for anybody that is inexperienced in doing Titan events, treat it as if it's another Fusion event, because you're going to be doing a lot of tournaments, such as what's currently active right now. We had the Fire Night one, which gave us some rewards there. You might as well consider that like little fragments, you know, here and there. There is, let's see, a chase event where maybe you can get some extra stuff. It doesn't look like it here. They're probably going to have it where you see the Yuletide Earnstone. So we're going to have a Spider Turn Attack one, which basically means the faster you are clearing it, the more you're going to get points, and that's going to equate to you getting some of those rewards on the side, similar to like the Fire Night Tournament one. And then they're going to do some events too as well, probably like the Path of Power, which is a perfect segue. So this one is kind of an interesting one because you have a choice. You can go for the He-Man Souls all the way up to the 5th star, or you can go for more Soulstone-oriented experiences. So the way that you're going to be able to do this is you're going to try to acquire points by doing certain objectives, which are Skull Coins. This is very, very He-Man oriented, or Skeletor if you want to go there. And the way you're going to be able to get it is by getting artifacts and accessories. So basically your Dungeon Divers-esque experience, I would say. And then, of course, summon champions from shards. This is the type of shard you use. Or, yeah, it's a type of shards, not what you get. So this is a summon rush-oriented theme. So if you're just pulling a sacred shard, you get it automatically a 4,500, and then primals, and then voids, and then ancients and mysteries, as you see on the screen there. So very, very valuable information to keep in mind. If you're going to be farming stuff anyways for the Yuletide event, this is a great overlap for you to maybe farm some stuff in addition to that for the Path of Power. Now, is the price point check worth it? I don't think so far it has been too taxing. I needed to farm some silver anyways from Spider because I've been doing a lot of theory crafting on Chimera, as well as some new champions have come on board. So I've been dumping a lot of resources into getting those champions established. And you know what? Resources burn out. So it was a nice little opportunity for me to farm some extra stuff there. There's another Spider tournament coming up, so I'm probably going to farm even more. To kind of replenish some of the coffers a little bit, you know? And this was a great way to kind of get a little bit out of it on top of that. Now, there is going to be a future breakdown that I'm going to do on the video for champions that are coming out for this week, so stand by for that one. I'll probably be on the same day, if not maybe a day later for the events coming up. But should you pull? I think the answer depends on whether or not you went for He-Man. They have a Forge or a Battle Pass or something like that where you can get He-Man himself at the end of it. If you bought that, then I think the answer is obvious that you planned on investing into getting He-Man and you plan on utilizing him. So if you are, getting a 5-star blessing for him is great. So I would recommend you go down that path. I am one of the lucky few. Shout out to, I believe it was Key that gave me the pass. He gifted it to me. And I was able to get He-Man myself. So, because I have him, the right side of the path is actually super valuable. It's a guaranteed 5-star for him if you go down the path and you're farming for it, which I plan on. On the second side, though, if you don't have He-Man, it's more of like, do you plan on it? We do have an event that's currently active right now where you could have a chance to get him, and it has a mercy system, so it's inevitable that as long as you continue to pull, obviously, you know, resources being, you know, whether or not you can afford it, but if you decide to go for it, then that's a great opportunity for you to acquire him. It's inevitable, right? Now, on this side, though, getting the frames, if you care about them, could be pretty cool. That's vanity. It's aesthetic. It depends on if you're a big fan of He-Man or not. But they also have some pretty interesting things here. So you have the lesser, not too much of a big deal. 10 essence, depending on where your account is at. If your majority of your most competitive champions, or at the very least champions that you use quite often, are less than 4 stars, or at 4 stars or less, or 3 stars or less, excuse me, you typically would say Soul Essence is pretty valuable. Medium Soul Stones, I value these very highly. These are very, very good. They've been consistent for me since summoning Soul Stones has been a thing, so I can't complain. However, when we get to Eternal, and of course the Eternal Soul Stones for both Essence and the Soul Stone itself, the price shift is a little hefty. It's a little bit easier than the He-Man Soul itself for the last notch, but It's a little bit more heftier. However, essences are very valuable because that could be the game changer between you going from a 4-star to a 5-star or a 5-star to a 6-star. And particularly when you start getting into the 5 and 6-star range, those blessings really start to kick in. They become very magnificent, to be honest with you. I'm just going to say it like that. Whether that's in competitive PvP or if you're looking to use it in environments where there is competition. Think the clashes like Chimera or maybe even Hydra still, which honestly Hydra has gained even more importance with Chimera having such a underrated value of using protection set. So I would say getting essences to improve those champions so that they are more effective in that environment is never a bad thing. So I look at competitive champions first. And then, of course, if there's something you do like and you love, it could be that Rosin that he may not be the top of the dog and the top dog anymore, but he's still a champion that's dear to your heart. If you want to get him upgraded, it's your game to play, bro. And one way you could do that is by acquiring those essences. So definitely valuable. I do think the price is not too bad. We've had worse. I will say that. We've had worse. So I don't view this Path event to be too over the top. I will say that it was very clever of them to throw some extra points for the Yuletide, so this is where we're going to bring it all full circle. As of right now, you can get a total of 1, 2, 3, that's what, 150? Plus 60 is 220? Let me know if I have math right. I think that's it. 210. There we go. So 210 in terms of value, quick maps, you know what I'm saying? 210 in terms of getting you a little bit closer, and that could be the jumping point for you getting past the first phase, literally, if that's something you're pushing, or if you're where I'm at, that could get you a little step closer. I'll be more so around in the bottom end of milestone 3. So there's some areas where you can get some value at, and I guess that depends on if you're planning on going through this Yuletide event pretty aggressively. I think there are some good resources along the way, but they're more so on the back end, so you have to kind of do some groundwork to get there. There's not really much else going on in the game outside of the Chimera experience, so this is a great opportunity to maybe do some things that are good for your account while netting some additional resources along the way. I'm okay with it. I feel like this is a fun little thing to do. I don't know per se. So far, it doesn't feel like this experience has been too taxing. We had a similar event that was a Yuletide Titan event for Torment, and that one was very taxing. Like, we just needed so many resources and so many things we had to farm to get to that very end. And it feels like they kind of eased up a little bit this round, and I appreciate it quite a lot. So, with that being said, let me know. Are you guys going to go for this Yuletide event? Are you going to participate in the Path of Power? Are you going for the He-Man Soulstone? If not, why? Do you not have the champion? Or is it that you don't think that the champion is necessarily to go for? I've heard some people make some arguments about only needing the 4-star because it's where you get the biggest stat grabs, the HP and the crit damage and everything else above it. So you kind of hit everything you need for a PvP nuker or a nuker in general for He-Man, which is a damage dealer. So maybe they don't care too much about 5-star, but I'm of the proponent, if you're going to go in, you might as well go all the way with it, because 5-star means that you're one step closer to that 6-star, which could be game changer for your experience, and that's basically where I'm at with it. But outside of that, though, I think I'm going to enjoy these events and just kind of casually take my time doing them, get them in there, get my value wherever I see fit, and enjoy the Christmas experience. I think that's pretty much what I'm looking forward to. So with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys plan on doing with these events. Are you going to ignore them, or are you going to get in on them? And with that being said, don't forget to always remember, stay ascended.
Click together, yeah.